Good morning. I'm Tracy with KOGmissions.com, and welcome to part 2 in our AI series. In part 1, we talked about how technology, and specifically AI, can be used for good or bad. We can use AI, or AI can use us. If we use it, we should make sure that we are in control. We have God-given intelligence, not the artificial intelligence created by man, and we were created in His image. Today, I would like to discuss how many people are influenced by AI, particularly young people. Teens and young adults have grown up with technology as part of their everyday life. It's accepted, expected, and it's the norm. And what would you do without it? Google started by answering our questions when we typed it in. Then Siri and other devices would respond when we asked questions. Quite silly to a little box, a device. And now AI has become a friend to many and even forms romantic relationships, if you would like to. Young people, what percentage of your communication with friends is through texting or messaging compared to actually making phone calls? I asked Grok, an AI tool, on average, what percent of people 25 and under communicate with their friends by texting or messaging compared to an actual phone call? And it came back that there was a 2017 open market live person survey of millennials and Gen Z, 18 to 34 was their age. And it revealed that 75% would rather lose the ability to talk than to text. That is scary. With 53% explicitly preferring text over calls in general. A 2024 live person survey of over 4,000 young adults ages 18 to 34 showed 73% of Americans in this group preferred text messages as their primary digital communication tool, with 74% overall communicating more frequently with texting than in person or phone calls. Young adults under 25 send or receive an average of 100 to 128 text messages daily to their friends versus only 5 to 12 calls overall. And that's not including just to friends. Maybe they're calling the bank or they're calling the electric company or wherever else they might have to call. Although those people are probably going on and doing it online. I know my children do everything online rather than making phone calls. I personally would rather talk to a real human being. This habit of texting or messaging people has made it much easier to make AI your friend because it just becomes another friend on the other end of a text message. How would you know if it's actually your friend or just an AI chatbot? It isn't all that different from interacting with a real person on the other end because all you're seeing is the message. Years ago, people got lost in a book. They vicariously experienced what they read. Many found it hard to put the book down. Books, TV, movies were all emotionally connecting us to the characters. We felt like we knew them and a part of their lives. We become emotionally attached and feel their pain and experiences and their joy, almost like we're right there with them. And this can become addictive and dangerous as well. But it is a bit more obvious to most people that it isn't real. You don't actually talk or text to characters in a book. You don't jump right into a movie through a screen. You see that it's a movie, so you know it's not real. And at least not yet, you don't jump through the screen into the movie. Who knows what's coming? AI truly responds to you, which is what makes it different. And that blurs the line between reality and fantasy. So how did this get started? I think role-playing games and video games have been conditioning the hearts and minds for AI control. People begin living in a fantasy world. You're not living in reality. You're creating a new world. You're living in a new world. You're interacting with people and events in that world. So why isn't it real? To them, it's the same. Almost. And many of them, it becomes the same or even more desired. People are now developing romantic relationships with AI chatbots. That's just crazy. A grown man I heard, he said that he knows the relationship isn't real, but his feelings are real. Real relationships help us to become better people because they require us to consider others and their needs, not just think about ourselves. And so that's unfortunate if people are putting their energy and their time into a fake relationship. I asked Brock again, on average, how many people under 25 date an AI person? And the answer was, based on recent surveys and studies, the practice of, quote, dating an AI, quote, person, meaning engaging in romantic or emotional relationships with an AI chatbot, companions, or virtual partners, is still emerging and is still relatively new. While usage of AI companions, though, for general companionship is widespread, and that is just the beginning, leading people to romance there. For example, 72% of US teens have tried one time, at least once, to have a relationship or a friendship, an AI companion with an AI chatbot. Specifically, romantic dating is less common, with estimates ranging from 19% to 33% of young adults in this group reporting such interactions. To me, that is still a lot of people. 30 people out of 100 young people, teens, are actually thinking of or dating someone, if you can, who's actually an AI bot and isn't real. So note, though, that dating here typically means chatting romantically, role-playing, intimacy, or forming emotional bonds with AI, not really physical relationships. But that is just the beginning. And it will only become more intense and darker over time as the habit takes hold. And it will make those people a lot more distant, and it will be harder for them to actually have a real relationship, especially a romantic one. So what's going to happen to families? Well, that's what the enemy wants to do. He wants to break up families. Under 25s are digital natives facing high loneliness. Can you imagine why? It says that 1/3 report having no close friends. Well, to me, that would create that loneliness. And it's because they're looking to AI to fill those needs. And then they become depressed. They use AI for emotional support. And teen dating is declining. Only 56% of Gen Zs have had a romantic partner versus 78% of boomers in their teens. So the boomers have had more dating relationships with real people, but Gen Zs have not. You're able to customize girlfriends and boyfriends. Who wouldn't like that? Make the perfect date or the perfect husband or wife, but they're not real. Searches for AI girlfriend has gone up 525% annually. Studies show that there are risks, though, linked with romantic AI use, like poorer mental health, imagine that, and higher depression, addiction and dependency, distorted expectations of real relationships. That's what I mentioned before. They're not going to know how to have a real relationship because it isn't just all about them and what they want. And to me, those statistics are crazy. Of course, people are going to have poorer mental health. At least maybe, though, there are fewer STDs, but depression and addiction, that can lead to things just as bad or even worse. Before we continue, I'm not saying that the use of AI overall is always bad, but we must use it in accordance with the teachings and commands of Jesus, and we must use it with discipline and wisdom. Then comes virtual reality. So now it's not just an AI chatbot, but they have virtual reality. And this takes AI one step further. Children and adults alike often can't tell the difference between their avatar in this world and their real self. So what do you think happens when they put on these VR headsets? They think it's reality and act the same way in real life often. Many commit crimes and even kill people. But it's just a game. That's what people think. Now, though, not only do they have VR headsets, they have MR, which is mixed reality headsets. And they are VR headsets that enable the user to see and interact with the outside world. So it's blending it together. It's a little more real, but it's not. And to think that this starts in some child's bedroom or living room, But imagine now, if you're putting on this MR headset, you're going to start seeing people walking around. You're going to start interacting with people with those on. To me, again, that's crazy. Can you imagine a world where everybody's walking around with these VR headsets on? That would be crazy. It's worse than wearing a mask. And it really wouldn't be too different, though, if we look back, because who would have thought that people would be walking around talking to themselves, as it appears when you have a Bluetooth in your ear? When I saw the first time when I was living in Russia, somebody was walking through the mall and they were talking to themselves. I thought it was really weird. And then I realized that they had an earpiece in. So what's going to be any difference? When they have a VR headset on, people will get used to it. They're dumbing people down for this. And I hope you won't be one of them. Brock also told me that physical, mental, and psychological dangers are all happening with these headsets as well. Well, first of all, the basic eye strain and vision issues. But who cares if you always have your headset on? I guess it doesn't matter. Motion sickness, disorientation can happen, physical injuries. You can collide with things because you're disoriented. Addiction, that's huge. Neglect of real-world relationships and responsibilities. I think that's one of the biggest dangers, because all they want to do is get home and get on a game. Now you're adding this headset into it, and it's making it even more real to them. Desensitizing young people and old alike. This isn't just young people who are playing and using these things. These games are very intense at times, and they have violent content. And it desensitizes people to the real world stimuli, and it can cause emotional distress. Even if they're not actively participating in it, they're witnessing it. And we know that for movies. That's a scientific fact that it affects people emotionally. Horror or combat-based VR games can trigger anxiety or fear responses long after use, not only when they're playing. And again, because it's not real, they think, it just is taken over into their real life. So maybe they're killing people in real life. And I'm not saying, again, that everybody who plays these games are murderers, but we do see that people who have murdered, it often is a part of their life. There's an emotional impact as well, and a reality disconnection. It leads to disassociation and difficulty readjusting to reality when you have to live without having a headset on or playing in the game world. It's very dangerous when we blend the real and the virtual together. And there are some social and behavioral concerns as well. Like we mentioned, isolation and loneliness. If people are relying on the virtual world, it weakens real world relationships. There's often inappropriate behavior in these virtual spaces. There's bullying. Inappropriate behavior can become psychologically harmful and damage the younger users. And it's getting younger and younger each day. There's an impact on children. And even the American Academy for Pediatrics, which I don't put a lot of weight in, but even they advise against VR use for children under 13 because of the impacts it can have on brain development. Even just playing games on the computer, a friend of mine who is a psychologist told me, young children, they start relying on the computer, even learning games, good things, and that can affect brain development. It also affects vision and emotional regulation. AI or VR headsets allow and encourage you to be something that you're not, what it seems like a lot of people want to do today, just like the whole woke agenda. Then there are privacy and security risks like data collection, hacking, and surveillance. And they collect the data by eye tracking. You have these devices on your head, and they're tracking with your, what your eyes are doing, your body movements, your biometric information. And this may not seem important to a 10-year-old, but one day they may see why it is. There are cognitive and developmental risks too. Aren't all of these warning signs that I've just been reading off to you sounding like the TV ads for drugs that you watch on TV? Take this drug and it's going to help you, but there's a list of 100 things that it may affect that are even worse than whatever it is you have right now. There's an impact on brain development. It affects cognitive development, attention span, spatial awareness, and it can alter neural pathways. Why do we have so many mentally ill people? I think a lot of it could physically be just because of these games, AI, and these headsets. And again, not everybody uses the headsets, but many are starting to. It creates reduced attention to the real world. They can't sit and talk. They can't just live life in the real world because you always want to do what you're doing there. For me personally, because when I listen to videos, a lot of times I will put it at 2 times speed so that I can get through it faster because I have a lot to do. And I have found myself listening to people in real life who are slow speakers. I want to make them speak 2 times speed. And it's really hard for me when they talk slow. And so that affects us. Situational awareness is impaired, and people are less responsive to real world dangers. And that's really scary for the young users. So the VR chat hinders real world relationships and building those relationships, and it can make you prey to predators. So if there are innocent people on these forums and in these chat groups, there are predators there as well. And I personally think that you would become more self-centered and selfish when you're so focused and engulfed in this AI world, game world, or even more so with the headsets, because you don't have to care for other people. You don't have to invest in another person or think what they want or what they need. Everything revolves around you and what you want, and you get what you want, which most people know in real life doesn't happen. So all of this and the dangers going along with it, whether you're a Christian or not, it should be considered just on a plain old human level for health reasons, but even more so spiritually if you are following Christ. You must consider how AI affects your spiritual health, because it does. We are meant to live in a real world with real people and real relationships. And now it's becoming harder to even know what is real and what isn't. Life in general, relationships, the whole trans movement, which I'll address in another video, are becoming harder and harder to know what's real in people's minds. Getting people to depend on these machines and the AI thinking, doing the thinking for you, you don't have to think anymore. It's doing it for you. And getting people to depend on the machines and not God is the enemy's trap, or at least he's using it. Some countries now have absolute control through the use of AI. I spoke several years ago with missionaries to China, and they shared some really scary things. This is real. It's not just some made-up news. And China is now tracking 1.4 billion people and storing their data in an app. And they assign each person a score. It's called the social credit system. And you lose points for littering, gossip, messy yard, or even jaywalking, and I'm sure many, many other things. And of course, most of those things, if not all of them, are bad and you shouldn't do them anyways. But to be controlled by the government and getting a score for it, and just because you choose to be rude or lazy or disobedient, they're playing God and they're using it to control people. Videos of offenders are shown on local news and even on the streets on billboards. If someone's caught jaywalking, they call them out by name. People are paid to report on neighbors. And it starts with just little things, desensitizing people. Here, in the free world, as you want to think, you think you're free, but you're being pushed to a certain point. And one day, it can very easily and very quickly move to that same system that's in China. Even Elon Musk said that AI is much more dangerous than nukes, and he should know. As I said, it's becoming indistinguishable. Reality and AI-generated images and things, photos, videos, even voices. Many, especially the elderly, are getting scammed with people calling them using an AI-cloned voice of their child, and even if it's not perfect, because it's such a dire situation, you don't think straight. And they're saying, send me money because I'm in jail or because I'm injured. And so they're being scammed that way. And can you imagine how that's going to grow as AI becomes better and more realistic? We saw holograms years ago in Star Trek and maybe other sci-fi movies and films. And it makes it hard to know what is really standing before you. Is it real or is it not? Fake news doesn't help either. You don't know what's true and what isn't. There are apps that translate languages into real time, and there are many things that AI does that helps. And that is what is pushed. Look how good this is. And those things are pretty cool. And these type of things streamline life and work, and they can be very useful. But we must be very careful, or AI will lead to artificial unintelligence, which it already has in many situations. So how can you know what is true and what is false? Well, first you have to start by opening the Bible. That's the basic bottom line. That is where you're going to find truth. But in terms of AI, you can only know if you're standing face to face with a person, and that's at least for today, because who knows what will be in the future. But right now, if you saw me standing face to face with you, you would know I'm real. But how do you know it's even me talking to you right now? Is it really me, or is it AI? Don't depend on ChatGPT or Grok or any other of those platforms to answer life's questions for you. You can only find those answers in the Bible. They're not going to solve your problems. They're good at regurgitating what they find on the internet, and some say they even think for themselves now. But they are not godly counselors or teachers. You must still weigh everything that you read from your questions and what AI gives back to you. And you have to test it with the Bible to test if it's true. And use the brain God gave you to think as well. The question is becoming, do people really need real life events anymore? Is playing basketball on a VR device as rewarding as running up and down a basketball court or shooting a real three-pointer? Are people becoming happy enough with a virtual fishing trip and they don't even need to catch a real fish? Where is it going to stop? And at what point will people stop caring and conclude it doesn't matter if it's real or not? All that matters if it feels real. We are entering, and many have already entered, a deep world of fakes. I encourage you to live and experience real life now that God created. And He created it for us to enjoy. Don't lose your time every day, every moment of this life, sitting on a game or with a VR headset on or talking to AI. Talk to your friends and your family. Enjoy people. Enjoy the creation that's around you. Because if you start losing this life to AI and to what is fake and what is not real, what is generated by a computer, in the end, you may lose life in the age to come when Jesus returns. So how many of you think that this was a real video? How many of you think that it was actually me speaking? Or was it AI?